Hello everyone, I hope you guys are all having a great day. Today, it's been a while since I made a video, I think like 2 months, and so I just wanted to catch up a little bit and do some recent reads. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that the reason I haven't been making videos for the past 2 months is because I'm a 5th grade teacher and school just started at the end of August. So I have been in school for 2 weeks and I was doing teacher planning and things like that for the past month and a half. Um, so I was too tired at the end of the day to come home and do videos and things like that. But I'm settled in now, classes are going well, and I think that I'm at the point now where I can start making videos. Maybe not as often as I was during the summer, but I think that my goal for right now is 2 to 3 videos a month. That will give me a little bit of time to sort of play catch up if I need to towards the end of the month. I have also been doing a lot of traveling. In the middle of the summer, or towards the end of the summer, I went home to Maryland, which was a lot of fun, and it was hot and it was wonderful. And then I got home, and then school. It was time to get ready for school again. So I just haven't had time to be making videos, but like I said, things are calming down now. And even last weekend, things were calm, but it was the last weekend of the season, and so we decided to go camping in Valdez. So that was a ton of fun. It was a perfect weekend, sunshine the whole time. And for those of you who don't know, Valdez is a small little fishing city on the coast of Alaska. It's probably the most beautiful drive I've been on since we've been here. I think going down to Homer is great, but Valdez is even better because it's in the complete opposite direction, and we have never been that way before, and we got to see whole new sets of mountains and waterfalls everywhere. It was just stunning. And even though it was the last weekend of the season and you would expect everybody to be out and running around, Valdez wasn't very crowded. So it was gorgeous. It's right on the water. We got to take a look at all the boats and the docks, and we saw sea otters and salmon, literally salmon jumping out of the water. It was the strangest thing I think I've ever seen. So it's been a good past couple of weeks, but I'm ready to get back in the swing of things. So I'm going to start with some recent reads. I don't know when I read this, maybe a month ago. I finished The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy. This was my first Thomas Hardy book, and I am going to do a full review of it soon, but I just wanted to mention it in recent reads and say that it was absolutely a wonderful book. I'm so glad I read it. It was Thomas Hardy just has a way of speaking truth and about personalities and about just the way that humans are, and it's really, really beautiful. The story is about a man who is a drunk, and during one of his drunken outbursts, he sells his wife to some sailor, and that's it. He's done with her, and he feels remorse for that, and it's about how he attempts to move on from that and become a better person. And so it's about him and his wife and several other characters who become entwined in this sort of web of deceit. It didn't end the way I expected it to. I loved how Thomas Hardy was constantly throwing in new characters. It's something that I found very interesting and exciting as I was reading it. So I'll go ahead and do a full review of this in a couple of weeks, but I did give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I absolutely recommend it for anybody who's interested in classics. After I read The Mayor of Casterbridge, I read Home by Toni Morrison. This was another one of the books from my sort of random number generated TBR list. It's a short little book. It is well written, and it's a really interesting story about a man who comes back from Korea and is trying to reintegrate into society and how he attempts to do that. I thought it was very well written and it was meaningful, but it's so short. My biggest problem with this story is that I felt like there could have been so much more. This is not. I talked a few months ago about TARDIS books, and they're little books that pack a big punch. And I feel like this is actually the opposite of that. It's a little book, and it should have been bigger. She should have, and could have probably, done more with it. So I loved it. I loved the characters and everything that happens, but I wanted so much more to continue the story and even go more in depth with what is in this story. Because I feel like it's important and I want to know more. So I will also do, well, I will maybe do a longer review of this. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars, only because I just felt like it was incomplete. And then the final book that I have read recently is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This is just a stellar book. I absolutely loved it. It is very typical Neil Gaiman. It's sort of modern fantasy, but it's not a modern story. I think it probably takes place in the 60s, maybe the 50s. And it's about a little boy who sees a man commit suicide, and that just sort of starts this big string of events, and he is sort of thrown into this whole world that he didn't even know existed. And I will do a fuller review of this book, but I'm just going to say right off the bat, one of the things I love about it so much is that Neil Gaiman throws you into a fantasy world, and he makes it very believable. I feel like with a story like this in somebody else's hands, you would constantly be thinking, well, is this really what's happening, or is this just a psychological trick and this is just how the boy is perceiving reality. This is just how the boy is trying to struggle with what he's seeing go on in the grown-up world, and that's not what's happening here. Neil Gaiman makes you believe 100% in what is happening in this story, and it's beautiful. I absolutely adored it. If you haven't read a Neil Gaiman book, this is probably a good place to start because it's short and it's sweet, and there's a song in there somewhere, my bad. But it's definitely something to pick up if you are interested in really, really meaningful fantasy, although I don't know if he would call it fantasy. So that's 3 books that I've read recently. I also have 2 recent rejects. I picked these books up from the library because they were on my TBR list on my Goodreads account, and I just thought I'd give them a try, and I decided not to finish them. The first one was American War. This is about in the somewhat recent future. Is that how you would say that? Recent future? Near future, that's probably it. There's another American Civil War, and it's about the things that sparked this Civil War. And I thought that it would be really interesting because I thought that it could be a really interesting commentary on the race problems that we're having in the United States, as well as environmental issues, because like in the beginning, he shows you this map of what the world looks like, or well, not the world, what the US looks like, North America. And obviously you can't see this up close, but the geography has changed because our environment is changing. And I thought, man, that's really interesting. This is going to be an awesome story, but it just didn't hook me. I think that it starts a little too slowly, and after the first like 50 pages, I was just I wasn't willing to continue reading it. So maybe at some other point I'll pick this up again because I feel like there's something here, but it's just not for me right now. And then this one, The Circle by Dave Eggers, maybe. This is basically about a company very similar to Google, although it's not Google. And it's about, this company has changed the world because they, instead of having to log into different accounts for everything, you just have one account. And it is not only your internet stuff, but everything, including your finances and things like that. And that's a great thing. How simple and wonderful and beautiful, right? But obviously we can see how that goes wrong. And again, I think this could have been a great story, but the writing was really strange. I would read a sentence and think, what a ridiculous way to describe what's happening here. And the author has a really annoying way of describing events. Like, she takes a whole chapter, basically. Well, there aren't really chapters, but she takes a whole section to describe the 3 founders of The Circle, this company, and it's supposed to be like somebody speaking it, but it's not a conversation. It's just this monologue, and I found that to be a little annoying and it was just a silly way to write. So again, maybe in the hands of another author, this could be a great story, but as of right now, I will not be finishing it. I think that was made into a movie recently with Emma Watson? Hermione Granger? I don't know her real name, no. And so I think that's why I ended up picking it up, because I thought, oh, well, I like her, maybe it will be a good book, but it wasn't. And then a couple of books that I am currently reading. I am reading the Book of Rental Property Investing. My husband and I, for the past probably year and a half, have been interested in rental property investing, but we haven't taken steps forward with it yet, so I'm reading this, and hopefully that will lead me to some next steps on how we can purchase our first home. During the school year, I like to read books that have to do with teaching, and so I'm reading Strategies That Work, which is about teaching reading. I'm really enjoying it because I think it has a lot of things that I'm going to be able to implement in my classroom, singular. But one interesting thing about it is that modern teachers have this concept that we create meaning when we read, and I sort of understand what they're talking about. You know, we engage with a text, and it's part of what we do here on YouTube is we read a book and then we talk about what we think about it. And so in a way, they say that that is creating new meaning. And I'm wondering if that's really an accurate term for what we're doing here. Are we creating meaning, or are we just engaging with the text? Can we really create meaning on what somebody else wrote? I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot, and if you have an opinion on the matter, I would love to hear it. And then finally, I am reading Alaska by James Michener. This is interesting, but it's sort of slow, and it doesn't focus on one character line like I thought it would. He's jumping around from the historical ages in Alaska, so he started with like the Ice Age, and then he threw in a chapter about the different animals like the mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger that have been found here. And then he is now talking about the first people groups that came to Alaska by crossing the Bering Land Bridge and then the Bering Strait. And so it's interesting, but it's very slow, and it's a massive book, so this is going to take me a while, and I really want to finish it because it was recommended to me by a friend, and it's about Alaska, and I love Alaska, so I'm going to slog through it, but I'm really hoping that it picks up, because right now I'm not that impressed. So that's what's going on with me. I will try, like I said, to make videos a couple of times a month just to stay involved in the YouTube community. I'd love to know what you guys are reading right now, and if you've read any of the books that I talked about today. Leave comments down below if you have, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.